Jakarta RESTful Web Services is one way in Java that we can make an API which looks a little bit like this. Let's get started. I have a simple Hello World application here. We have just a few dependencies, something for our logging, a web server to run our JAX-RS service on. We're using MooServer, and Jackson JSON provider. This is going to help us convert Java objects to and from JSON. So let's say we have a product catalog. We're going to have a product class, which is a class with an ID, a name, and a price. And we want to expose this on an API endpoint on some path. We add the path annotation. Let's say we want to put it on API products. We can then define a class which is going to serve that endpoint. Convention says we call it product resource. Let's just add two endpoints for now. So one get endpoint. This produces application JSON. And let's return a list of products. Let's return all of them. So in fact, we're going to do this in memory. We'd normally use a database, but for this demo, let's just create an in-memory list of products. And let's make it a copy on write array list. Okay. Import the list. Right. So now we can get all the products, and we're simply going to return the products. Jackson is going to convert these to JSON for us. Let's create a second endpoint to create a product. So this consumes application JSON, but let's also return the product that we create when we create one to the client. Now it's very tempting to do exactly what our IDE has suggested here, where we take a product from the client and simply use it. However, the IDE is a bit of it's something we want to control, not the clients. So we can create a second record which only has the information the client is allowed to specify, which is the name and price. We can then pass that in there, and we can create the product ourselves. So here's the ID. We want to make sure it really is a random ID and not some duplicate the client has provided us. And then we just copy the other values from the client. Again, we're just going to add this to the list rather than saving to the database for this demo. And then we return the product we created. So the client calling this will be able to see the ID of the product that they have created. Right, so we need a web server. Let's create one here. So as I said before, we're using MooServer. There's a static builder server. We just need to say which port to start on. And we add a handler. We have a REST handler builder just for JAX-RS. And unlike some other web servers which dynamically find all the resources, MooServer makes you be very explicit about what you are registering. So we need to tell it that we want to expose this. This is actually a really good way to do dependency injection, because we can pass in anything we want into the constructor very easily, such as a database connection. Anyway, let's move on. Let's start. Okay, so this is a REST handler builder. Let's just run this first and see what happens. Okay, well, let's print the URL of it. Started at server.uri. Okay, so here is our web server. IntelliJ has a very nice HTTP client we can use to send requests. So we started at localhost 8080, and we have API products. That is our get API. We can create a similar thing for creating a product. So we post to the same endpoint, but we pass it some request body, which is a JSON document. So let's just say we're selling microphones and the price is $99.99. So we should be able to send this to our server, and we see we get an error, unsupported media type. There's no entity provider. Okay, this is because we have not told our web server how to convert between a JSON string and a new product, or a product back to a JSON string. To do this, we can use the Jackson JSON provider. Jackson JSON provider is a new Jackson JSON provider. This is from the Jackson dependency. And on our REST handler, we simply add that provider as a reader and a writer. Again, this is a little different from some other web servers out there. This is being very explicit about what to do. So this bit is custom to MooServer, but the rest of the code is going to be the same no matter which server you're working with. Okay, let's try this endpoint again. Right, what's happened here? So we have posted a microphone with a price, and the output is a new ID, new name, well, the name we sent, and a price. So that is our response. If we wanted to, we can look at the headers, they're there. We can come back to our API endpoints, and we can call our get method. And I actually added 2 there. Whoops. But that's okay. Right, so next up we want to see how to expose this in a Swagger document. So Swagger is the nice UI you saw before for API documentation. What we need to do is get a JSON representation of our RESTful API, and we can do this very easily as well. There is a format called OpenAPI, and we are going to tell MooServer to create our OpenAPI document exposed at this URL for our RESTful server. So let's run this again. Now if I open this in my browser and we go to openapi.json, we can see a JSON representation of our API endpoint. So you don't need to worry too much about this. It's following the OpenAPI 3 spec. Now, we should be able to put this in here and run it, although this is a very common sight you're going to see when dealing with APIs and viewing things like Swagger. So to see what the problem is here, we can come to our console, and we can see there's a problem with the cross-origin request. So the problem is that this domain in a web browser is trying to call our API endpoint. Our API endpoint needs to explicitly say it is okay for petstore.swagger.io to call our JSON endpoint. So we need to specify some CORS configuration. Luckily, this is very simple. Again, we just add some CORS config. Now there are lots of different ways we can allow everything. We can specify regular expressions, but let's just hardcode that we explicitly allow this endpoint to call us. Let's run again. Okay, and press the button, and now we can see our API documentation. If I call this, we should get an empty response. Remember, we're in memory database, so every time I've been restarting, we've lost all the data. But we can come back here, we can run this post again, and now if we execute this, we're getting a microphone back. How about using this to create something? Well, we have to specify this here, so let's say the name of a new product, speakers, price, $129.99. Okay, what's going to happen here? And we get another CORS error. This time it's because the content type header is not being allowed. So this API is trying to send a content type of application JSON, and we have to explicitly allow that in our CORS config again. So once again, we're back here into our CORS config, and we can say it's okay to have the content type header sent. And let's try running this again. And this time we've got a successful response, and this is the ID we've sent. And we can come back here. We should see that same ID here. That's it. Very simple to get started. There are many more options. We can improve the documentation and all sorts of things, but this is all you need to get started very quickly with JAX-RS and MoveServer. Thanks.